This audiobook is based on The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason, a public domain work. The language has been adapted into modern English so that you can better understand the vital lessons from the great book. It is also straight to the point so that you get the lessons within the shortest possible time. You can use the timestamps in the thumbnail, the description, or the pinned comment to skip to particular chapters. Original narration is done by the Wealth Code channel. Now let's dive right in.
Chapter 1. The Man Who Desired Gold. Bansir, the chariot builder of Babylon, sat discouraged on the low wall around his property. He stared sadly at his modest house and the open workshop where a half-finished chariot stood. His wife kept appearing in the doorway, glancing at him in a way that reminded him their food supply was nearly gone. He knew he should be working, hammering, carving, polishing, painting, stretching leather over the wheel rims so he could finish the chariot, deliver it, and collect payment from his wealthy customer. But instead he sat there, his strong body motionless, struggling with a problem he could not solve. The hot sun of the Euphrates Valley beat down on him. Sweat rolled from his brow onto his chest. Beyond his home rose the tall walls of the king's palace, and nearby the painted tower of the Temple of Bel reached into the sky. In the shadow of such grandeur stood his simple house, along with many poorer ones. Babylon was a strange mix. Great wealth beside deep poverty, all crowded together within the city walls. Behind him, the busy city roared. Rich men's chariots pushed through the streets, forcing tradesmen and barefoot beggars aside. Even wealthy citizens stepped into the gutters to make way for long lines of slaves carrying water skins from the river to the king's hanging gardens. But Bansir barely noticed any of it. The sound of a familiar lyre suddenly broke his thoughts. He turned to see the smiling face of his best friend, Cobby the musician. "May the gods bless you generously, my friend," Cobby greeted him with a playful bow. "It seems they already have, since you're sitting here instead of working. Perhaps your purse is full? If so, lend me 2 shekels until after the nobleman's feast tonight. I promise I'll repay you." "If I had 2 shekels," Bansir replied gloomily, "I wouldn't lend them to anyone. Not even you. They would be my entire fortune." "You mean you have nothing in your purse?" Cobby asked in surprise. "Then why sit here like a statue? Why not finish that chariot and earn something? This isn't like you. Has something troubled you?" "It must be the gods," Bansir said. "It started with a dream. In the dream, I was a wealthy man. A heavy purse hung from my belt, filled with coins. I tossed shekels freely to beggars. I bought beautiful things for my wife, and anything I wanted for myself. I even had gold coins that made me feel secure about the future. I felt content and free from worry. My wife looked young and happy again, like when we first married." "A pleasant dream," Cobby said. "Yes, but when I woke and remembered how empty my purse really is, I felt angry. Think about it. We grew up together, studied together, shared pleasures together, and worked hard all our lives. Yet after all these years, we still have nothing. We live in the richest city in the world, surrounded by wealth, yet we own none of it." Bansir continued, "If you ask me for 2 shekels tonight, what will I say? That my purse is empty, just like yours. Why can't we earn more than enough for food and clothing? What about our sons? Must they live the same poor lives as we do, even while surrounded by gold?" Cobby looked puzzled. "You've never spoken like this before." "I've never thought like this before," Bansir said. "From dawn until night, I worked hard, hoping the gods would someday reward me with prosperity. But they never have, and I've realized they never will. I want land, cattle, fine clothes, and coins in my purse. I'm willing to work with all my strength and skill, but I want my work to be fairly rewarded. What's wrong with us? He asked again. Why can't we have our share of the good things in life? I wish I knew, Cobby replied. My earnings from playing the lyre disappear quickly. I struggle to feed my family too. Yet I dream of owning a great lyre, large enough to produce the music I hear in my mind. With such an instrument, I could play music finer than the king has ever heard. With your talent, no one in Babylon could make it sing more beautifully, Bonsir said. But how can I get it when we are as poor as the king's slaves? Cobby asked. Just then they noticed a long line of half-naked slaves carrying heavy goat skins of water up the narrow street from the river toward the hanging gardens. Look at them, Cobby said. They are strong men, Bonsir replied. Tall blonde men from the north, dark men from the south, and brown men from nearby lands, all marching back and forth every day, year after year. Their future is nothing but straw beds and grain porridge. I pity them, Cobby said. So do I, Bonsir answered. But seeing them makes me realize we are not much better off, even though we call ourselves free men. That's true, Cobby admitted. But must we continue like this forever, working hard and getting nowhere? Perhaps we should learn how others acquire gold and do the same. Maybe there's a secret we could learn, Bonsir said thoughtfully. I saw our old friend Arkad today, Cobby said. He rode past in his golden chariot. Even though he is the richest man in Babylon, he greeted me warmly, so everyone could see. They say even the king seeks his help in money matters, Bonsir said. He is incredibly rich, Cobby added. So rich that if I met him in the dark, I might be tempted to grab his purse, Bonsir joked. Nonsense, Cobby replied. A man's wealth isn't the purse he carries. A full purse empties quickly if there is no income to refill it. Arkad has an income that constantly fills his purse, no matter how much he spends. Income, that's the secret, Bonsir exclaimed. I want an income that keeps flowing whether I work or travel. Arkad must know how a man can create such an income, Cobby said. Then let's ask him, Bonsir replied. It costs nothing to seek advice from a wise friend. Good idea, Cobby agreed. Didn't his son become rich in Nineveh without his father's help? He must have taught him something. That settles it, Bonsir said. Let's go to Arkad today and ask how we can earn incomes for ourselves. And let's invite our other friends who struggle like we do, Cobby added, so they can share in his wisdom. You always think of your friends, Bonsir said. That's why you have so many. Then it's decided, Cobby replied. We'll go today and take them with us. Chapter 2. The Rich Man in Babylon. In ancient Babylon there lived a very rich man named Arkad. He was famous not only for his wealth, but also for his generosity. He gave freely to charity, cared well for his family, and spent generously on himself. Yet despite all this, his wealth grew faster each year than he could spend it. One day several friends from his youth came to him and said, Arkad, you are far more fortunate than we are. You are the richest man in Babylon, while we struggle just to survive. You wear fine clothes and eat rare foods, while we are happy if we can simply clothe and feed our families. Yet when we were young, we were equals. We studied under the same teacher, played the same games, and you were not smarter than us. You have not worked harder or been more honorable than we have. Why then has fate given you all the good things of life, while ignoring us. Arcad replied, "If you have gained nothing more than a bare living since our youth, it is because you have not learned the laws that govern wealth, or you have not followed them. As for luck, it is a dangerous goddess. When she gives gold to those who did not earn it, they usually waste it quickly. Others become miserly and fearful of losing it. Only a few handle sudden wealth wisely." His friends agreed that the people they knew who inherited wealth often wasted it. So they asked Arcad to explain how he himself became rich. "In my youth," Arcad said, "I looked around and saw that wealth allowed people to enjoy life. With wealth, one could decorate a home beautifully, travel distant seas, eat the finest foods, buy fine jewelry, and even build temples for the gods. Wealth gave power to enjoy life fully. When I realized this, I decided I would claim my share of life's good things. I would not stand aside watching others enjoy them." He continued, "I was the son of a poor merchant and had no inheritance waiting for me. I also knew I was not wiser than other men. So I decided that if I wanted wealth, I would need time and study. Time every man has. Yet you have allowed enough time to pass that you could already be wealthy. As for study, our teacher told us that learning has two parts: what we know and how to discover what we do not know. So I set out to learn how wealth is created." Arcad found work as a scribe copying records onto clay tablets. He worked long hours day after day, yet his earnings disappeared on food, clothing, offerings to the gods, and other expenses. One day, a rich moneylender named Algamish came to the record hall and ordered a copy of an important law. He promised Arcad 2 copper coins if the tablets were finished in 2 days. Arcad worked hard, but did not finish in time. Algamish was angry, but Arcad boldly said, "You are a very rich man. Tell me how I can also become rich, and I will work all night to finish the tablets." Algamish smiled and agreed. Arcad worked through the night despite exhaustion. When the moneylender returned the next morning, the work was done. "You have kept your part of the bargain," Algamish said kindly. "Now I will keep mine. I discovered the road to wealth when I decided that a part of everything I earned was mine to keep." "That is all?" Arcad asked in surprise. "That is enough," Algamish replied. "Do you not pay the shoemaker, the tailor, and the food seller? Everyone gets paid except you. If you kept just 1/10 of everything you earn, how much would you have after 10 years? "As much as I earn in a year," Arcad answered. "You speak only half the truth," Algamish said. "Every coin you save becomes a slave working for you. Every coin it earns becomes its child that also works for you. If you wish to become wealthy, save at least 1/10 of all you earn. Pay yourself first." He added, "Do not spend more on clothes or sandals than you can afford after saving your 10th and still paying for food, charity, and offerings. Wealth grows like a tree from a tiny seed. The first coin you save is the seed. Plant it early and nurture it with steady savings." Arcad followed this advice. Each time he was paid, he saved 1 coin out of every 10. Surprisingly, he did not feel poorer. But after a year, he made a mistake. He gave his savings to a brickmaker who promised to buy rare jewels overseas. When Algamish returned and heard this, he scolded him. "Why trust a brickmaker about jewels?" he said. "Would you ask a baker about the stars? Seek advice only from those who know." The investment was lost because the brickmaker was tricked into buying worthless glass. Arcad began saving again. The next year, he invested his savings with a shield maker who used the money to buy bronze. In return, Arkad received regular payments. But he spent these payments on feasts and luxury items. Algamish returned again and scolded him. "You are eating the children of your savings. How can they grow if you consume them? First, build an army of golden slaves working for you. Then, you may enjoy feasts without regret." Years later, Algamish returned once more, now very old. He asked Arkad if he had achieved wealth. "Not everything I desire," Arkad answered, "but my savings earn money, and their earnings earn more." Algamish smiled. "You have learned the lessons. Live on less than you earn. Seek advice from those who know, and make your gold work for you." Soon afterward, Algamish made Arkad his partner to manage his estates. Because Arkad understood these principles, he greatly increased their value. When Algamish died, Arkad inherited part of his estate. When Arkad finished telling this story, one friend said, "You were fortunate that Algamish chose you." "Only because I was determined to succeed," Arkad replied. "Opportunity favors those who prepare themselves." He then advised them, "Repeat this truth to yourselves. A part of all I earn is mine to keep. Save at least 1/10 of everything you earn. Arrange your spending around that rule." As their savings grew, he told them to invest wisely, so their money would earn more money. Seek advice from experienced men. Avoid risky investments promising huge returns. Provide for your family's future. Enjoy life, but never forget to save. Some friends dismissed his advice, others mocked him, but a few understood the wisdom and followed it. They returned to Arkad for guidance, invested carefully, and gradually became prosperous. Their turning point came the day they accepted the simple truth. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. Chapter 3. 7 Solutions for an Empty Wallet. The glory of Babylon has endured for centuries. It became famous as the richest city in the world, but it was not always so. Its wealth was created by the wisdom of its people, who first had to learn how to build wealth. After King Sargon returned from defeating the Elamites, he faced a serious problem. The royal chancellor explained it. "During the years when you built the great irrigation canals and temples, the people prospered. But now the projects are finished. Laborers have no work. Merchants have few customers. Farmers cannot sell their crops, and many people have no gold left to buy food." The king asked, "Where has all the gold gone?" "It has flowed into the hands of a few very rich men," the chancellor replied. "Most people spent everything they earned, and now that the flow of gold has stopped, they have nothing." The king thought carefully and asked, "Why can only a few men gain all the gold?" "Because they know how," the chancellor said. "We cannot blame them for succeeding. But if the whole city knew how to accumulate wealth, Babylon would become even richer." "Who can teach them?" the king asked. "The richest man in Babylon," the chancellor replied. "Arkad." So the king summoned Arkad. When Arkad appeared, the king asked, "Is it true you are the richest man in Babylon?" "So it is said," Arkad answered. "How did you become wealthy?" "By taking advantage of opportunities available to every citizen," Arkad replied. "I started with nothing except a strong desire for wealth." The king then explained the problem of the city. A few men know how to gain wealth, while most people do not know how to keep the gold they earn. I want Babylon to be the richest city in the world, filled with prosperous citizens. Can the knowledge of wealth be taught? Yes, Arkad said. What one man learns, others can learn. The king asked him to teach this knowledge to a group of men who would later teach others. Arkad agreed and asked for a class of 100 men. 2 weeks later, 100 citizens gathered in the great temple of learning. Arcad stood before them and said, "Once I was a poor young man who desperately wanted gold. My purse was empty, and I hated its emptiness. After searching for a solution, I discovered 7 cures for a lean purse. Over the next 7 days, I will teach them to you." The 7 solutions for an empty wallet. Solution 1. Start saving money. The first step to building wealth is simple. Save part of everything you earn. Arcad taught that for every 10 coins a person earns, 1 coin should be saved, and the other 9 used for living expenses. At first, this may feel difficult, but most people discover something surprising. They can still live comfortably on the remaining 9/10. Saving consistently creates the foundation for wealth. That first coin you save becomes the seed of your future fortune. Over time, as you continue saving regularly, the amount grows and your purse begins to feel heavier. The key idea is this: pay yourself first. Before paying bills or spending on anything else, set aside a portion of your earnings. If you make this a habit, your savings will steadily grow. Solution 2. Control your spending. Many people believe they cannot save because all their income is needed for expenses. But Arcad explained that expenses tend to rise to match income unless they are controlled. People often confuse needs with wants. Everyone has far more desires than they can realistically afford. Learning to tell the difference between necessities and luxuries is essential for building wealth. The solution is to plan your spending carefully. Make a budget that allows you to live on 90% of your income while protecting the 10% you save. Focus your spending on the things that truly matter and eliminate unnecessary costs. A budget is not meant to restrict your life. Instead, it helps you use your money intentionally so that your savings can grow while you still enjoy life. Solution 3. Make your money work for you. Saving money alone will not create great wealth. The real power comes when saved money begins earning more money. Arcad explained that every coin you save can become a worker that produces additional income. The profits those coins generate can then create even more earnings. For example, Arcad once lent money to a shield maker who needed funds to buy bronze for his business. In return, the craftsman paid Arcad interest. Arcad reinvested those earnings, and his wealth began to grow faster and faster. Over time, his savings turned into a steady stream of income. The lesson is simple. Invest your savings wisely so they generate more money. Solution 4. Protect your wealth from loss. Once money is saved and invested, it must be protected carefully. Many people lose their savings by chasing risky opportunities that promise huge returns. Arcad shared a painful lesson from his own experience. Early in life, he trusted a brickmaker to purchase rare jewels overseas. The man returned with worthless glass, and Arcad lost all the money he had saved that year. From this mistake, he learned an important rule. Never invest in something you do not understand. Before investing money, seek advice from people who have real experience in that field. Choose investments that are safe and reliable, rather than those that promise unrealistic profits. Protecting your savings is just as important as earning them. Solution 5. Own your home. Arcad believed that owning a home is one of the most valuable investments a person can make. Many families spend years paying rent to landlords but never build anything for themselves. By owning a home, a family gains stability, pride, and a place to grow roots. A home also reduces long-term living costs. Instead of paying rent forever, each payment toward a home builds equity and increases personal wealth. Beyond the financial benefits, owning a home improves quality of life. Families have space to grow, children have safe places to play, and the household gains a sense of independence and security. Solution 6. Secure your future income. Life moves from youth to old age, and there will come a time when a person can no longer work as hard as before. For that reason, Arcad taught that everyone should plan ahead and build income sources that will support them later in life. This can be done by saving and investing consistently over many years. Even small contributions, made regularly, can grow into large amounts thanks to compound interest. Arcad gave the example of a man who deposited a small amount with a moneylender every week for years. Over time, those small deposits grew into a large fortune that could support him comfortably. Planning for the future also protects your family if something unexpected happens. 7. Increase your ability to earn. The final cure focuses on improving yourself. Arcad believed that the more skills, knowledge, and experience a person gains, the more valuable they become, and the more they can earn. Anyone who wants to increase their income should continuously improve their abilities. Learn new skills, study successful people in your field, and work to become better at what you do. Desire is also important. A strong and clear goal pushes people to improve themselves and achieve greater success. In addition, Arcad encouraged people to live responsibly, pay debts on time, take care of family, help others when possible, and act with integrity. When people respect themselves and continue developing their abilities, their opportunities for earning money grow as well. The core lesson. These 7 solutions form a simple but powerful path to financial success. Save part of everything you earn. Control your spending. Invest so your money grows. Protect your wealth from loss. Own assets like your home. Prepare for the future. Keep improving your ability to earn. Arcad believed wealth was not reserved for a lucky few. Anyone who consistently followed these principles could gradually build financial security and prosperity. Chapter 4. Meet the Goddess of Good Luck. There is an old Babylonian proverb. If a man is lucky, there is no telling how great his good fortune may become. Throw him into the Euphrates, and he might swim out holding a pearl. The desire to be lucky is universal. 4,000 years ago in ancient Babylon, men wished for good luck just as strongly as people do today. Everyone hopes that fortune will smile upon them. But the people of Babylon wondered something deeper. Is there a way to attract good luck? To explore this question, many men gathered in a place known as the Temple of Learning. It was not a palace or a famous monument, but it played an important role in Babylonian society. In this hall, people met to discuss ideas, share knowledge, and debate important questions. Rich and poor sat together as equals. A slave could openly challenge the opinion of a nobleman. Among the regular visitors was Arcad, the richest man in Babylon. Many evenings he would sit on a raised platform, while groups of men gathered around to discuss topics of interest. One evening, the conversation turned to the subject of luck. A discussion about luck. A cloth weaver stood and said, "Today I found a purse filled with gold. I was lucky, but I wish to remain lucky. I suggest we discuss how a man might attract good fortune." The group agreed it was an excellent topic. Some suggested that luck appears at gaming tables, where men gamble, hoping the goddess of fortune will favor them. But Arkad disagreed. He explained that gambling games are designed so the house always has the advantage. Even though players occasionally win, the odds are arranged so that the keeper of the game consistently profits. If gambling truly created lasting wealth, Arkad said, we would see many successful men who built their fortunes that way. But among the wealthy citizens of Babylon, I know none who became rich through gambling. The group agreed. Luck clearly did not live at the gaming tables. Missed opportunities. An older merchant then suggested a different perspective. Instead of discussing lucky events, he said, let us talk about opportunities we almost took, but did not. If we had acted, those might have become great good fortune. He shared a story from his youth. Years earlier, his father encouraged him to join a group investment. 12 men would each invest a portion of their income to buy land outside the city. They planned to build irrigation systems and divide the land into small gardens to sell to city residents. The merchant hesitated. He wanted to buy beautiful robes for himself and his wife instead. Because he delayed making a decision, the opportunity passed. The investment later became extremely profitable. Had he joined it, he would have gained a large fortune. Another story of missed luck. A buyer of animals shared a similar story. One evening, he was locked outside the city gates, along with a farmer who was trying to sell a large flock of sheep. The farmer urgently needed to return home and offered the flock at a very low price. The buyer agreed to the deal, but insisted on counting all the sheep before paying. The farmer asked for partial payment immediately so he could leave, but the buyer refused. By morning, other traders arrived and bought the flock for 3 times the price the farmer had offered. The buyer realized he had missed a rare opportunity because he delayed. The real enemy, procrastination. A Syrian visitor listening to the discussion spoke up. You have a word for a man who delays doing what would benefit him, he said. What do you call such a man? Someone replied, a procrastinator. The Syrian nodded enthusiastically. Yes, that is it. Opportunity comes to him, but he waits. He says, I will decide later. But opportunity does not wait. If a man wishes to be lucky, he must act quickly. The group laughed, but they recognized the truth. The buyer of animals admitted that procrastination had often cost him profitable opportunities. Only after recognizing it as an enemy did he learn to overcome it. The merchant agreed. Once he realized that hesitation had robbed him of success, he worked hard to eliminate that habit. Arkad's conclusion. Arkad listened carefully and then summarized the discussion. Throughout my life, he said, I have watched many men pursue success. Opportunities appeared before all of them. Some recognized them and acted quickly. Those men moved forward and prospered, but many others hesitated. They delayed. They allowed opportunity to slip away. He then explained the key lesson. Good luck often follows opportunity, but it rarely appears on its own. When people recognize opportunities and act decisively, good fortune tends to follow. Those who wait, hesitate, or postpone decisions often watch their chances disappear. The lesson of the night. The cloth weaver, who had first raised the question, spoke again. At the beginning of this discussion, I believed luck was something that simply happened to a man. Now I see it differently. Luck seems to come to those who recognize opportunity and act on it. Arkad smiled. You understand the truth, he said. Good luck can be attracted by recognizing and acting on opportunity. People who act decisively attract the favor of fortune. Those who hesitate lose it. In other words, luck favors those who take action. Chapter 5. The 5 Laws of Money. A bag of gold or a tablet of wisdom. Which would you choose? Asked the old merchant. A bag heavy with gold or a clay tablet carved with words of wisdom. By the flickering light of a desert fire, the sun-browned faces of the listeners shone with excitement. "The gold! The gold!" they shouted together. Old Calabab smiled knowingly. Arkad raised his hand for silence. "Listen to the wild dogs out there in the night," he said. "They howl because they are hungry. Yet if you feed them until they are full, what do? They strut around, fight among themselves, and give no thought to tomorrow, when hunger will return. Men often behave the same way. Give them a choice between money and wisdom, and they ignore the wisdom. They spend the money quickly, and later complain when it is gone. Money stays only with those who understand its laws and follow them." Calabab pulled his white robe closer around his thin legs as a cool desert wind began to blow. "Because you have served me faithfully on this long journey, cared well for my camels, worked without complaint across the hot desert sands, and fought bravely against the robbers who tried to steal my goods, I will reward you tonight with a story. I will tell you the tale of the 5 laws of money, a story you have never heard before." He looked carefully at the men gathered around the fire. "Listen closely. If you understand these laws and apply them in the years ahead, you will one day possess much money." Above them, the sky was clear and filled with bright stars. Their worn tents stood nearby, tightly secured against possible desert storms. Bundles of merchandise were stacked neatly and covered with skins. A herd of camels rested in the sand, some chewing quietly while others snored loudly. The chief packer spoke up. "You have told us many good stories, Calabab. When our service with you ends tomorrow, we hope to remember your wisdom." Calabab nodded. "I have told you many stories of my adventures in distant lands. Tonight, I will tell you the wisdom of Arkad, the richest man who ever lived in Babylon." "We have heard of him," the chief packer replied. "He was famous for his wealth." "Yes," Calabab said, "but he was wealthy because he understood money better than any man before him." The story of Nomasir. Many years ago, when I was young, my master and I stayed in the palace of Nomasir, the son of Arkad. We had brought fine rugs for him to examine. After he selected the colors he liked, he invited us to sit with him and drink a rare wine. As we sat together that night, he told us a story about the wisdom of his father. In Babylon, it was common for sons of wealthy men to live comfortably while waiting to inherit their father's fortunes. Arkad did not approve of this custom. When Nomasir became a man, Arkad called him and said, "My son, I want you to inherit my wealth. But first, you must prove that you are capable of managing it wisely. Go out into the world and demonstrate that you can earn money and gain the respect of other men. To help you begin, I will give you 2 things that I never received when I was young and poor. First, here is a bag of gold. If you use it wisely, it can become the foundation of your future fortune. Second, here is a clay tablet on which are written the 5 laws of money. If you understand and follow these laws, they will bring you financial security and success. 10 years from now, return and tell me what you have accomplished. If you prove yourself worthy, you will become the heir to my estate." The loss of the gold Nomasir left with the bag of gold, the clay tablet wrapped carefully in cloth, a servant, and horses for their journey. 10 years later, he returned home. His father hosted a great feast to celebrate his return. After the meal, Nomasir stood before his parents and family to explain what had happened. "My father," he began respectfully, "10 years ago you sent me out into the world to prove myself. You gave me both money and wisdom. I must admit that I handled the money very poorly. It slipped through my fingers, like a frightened rabbit escaping from an inexperienced hunter." His father smiled calmly. "Continue," he said. "Your story interests me." Nomasir explained that he traveled to Nineveh, believing it offered great opportunities. During the journey, he met two friendly men who owned a magnificent white horse. They told him about a wealthy man in Nineveh who loved to bet on horse races. They convinced Nomasir that their horse was faster than the rich man's horse and encouraged him to bet his money. Excited by the opportunity, he agreed. The race was held, and their horse lost badly. Later, Nomasir discovered that the entire situation had been a clever scam. The supposed opponent was actually their partner, and together they tricked travelers out of their money. That painful experience taught him his first lesson about money. Another mistake. Not long after arriving in Nineveh, Nomasir met another young man who claimed a merchant's shop could be purchased cheaply after the merchant's death. The young man suggested they become equal partners. Nomasir used his money to buy the shop, while the other man promised to return to Babylon to collect his own funds. But the partner delayed returning and turned out to be both a poor businessman and a careless spender. Eventually, Nomasir had to remove him from the business. By then the shop had failed. The remaining goods were worthless, and he had lost almost everything. Soon, Nomasir was forced to sell his horses, his servant, and even his clothing just to survive. "These were difficult days," he told his father, "but I remembered your confidence in me. You had sent me out to become a man, and I was determined to succeed." The 5 Laws of Money. During that difficult time, Nomasir remembered the clay tablet his father had given him. He studied the 5 laws of money carefully and realized that if he had followed them earlier, he would not have lost his fortune. He memorized them and promised himself he would follow them from then on. He then read the laws aloud to those listening in the hall. The first law of money comes willingly and in increasing amounts to anyone who saves at least 1/10 of their earnings to build wealth for the future. Anyone who consistently saves part of their income and invests it wisely will eventually build a valuable estate that can support them and protect their family. The second law of money works diligently for the wise owner who puts it to productive use. Just as animals multiply in the fields, money also multiplies when invested wisely and allowed to grow over time. The third law of money stays with the careful owner who invests it with the guidance of experienced and knowledgeable people. Seeking advice from those who understand money helps protect wealth and ensures steady growth. The fourth law of money slips away from those who invest in businesses they do not understand, or that knowledgeable people warn against. Inexperience and overconfidence often lead to costly mistakes. The fifth law of money runs away from those who try to force it into impossible profits or who trust the promises of tricksters and unrealistic schemes. Get-rich-quick opportunities usually bring loss rather than wealth. The return of wealth. After learning these lessons, Nomasir found work supervising slaves who were building the city walls. From his small wages, he began saving money, following the first law. One day, his supervisor told him about a group of investors planning to import metal for the city gates. Nomasir joined them and invested his savings under their guidance. The investment succeeded, and his money grew. Over time, he joined them in other profitable ventures. These men carefully studied every opportunity and avoided risky schemes. Through patience, discipline, and wise investment, Nomasir gradually rebuilt his fortune. Wisdom is worth more than gold. At the end of his story, Nomasir placed 3 heavy bags of gold before his father. "You gave me 1 bag of gold and a tablet of wisdom," he said. "I return to you a bag equal to the one you gave me, along with 2 additional bags earned through applying your wisdom. This proves that your wisdom was worth far more than the gold itself." Arkad placed his hand on his son's head. "You have learned well," he said. "You are worthy to inherit my wealth." The lesson of the 5 laws. Kalabab finished his story and looked at the men around the fire. These 5 laws are the secrets of my own success as well. They are not magical secrets, only truths that every person must learn if they wish to escape poverty. Wealth that appears suddenly usually disappears just as quickly. True wealth grows slowly through knowledge, discipline, and steady effort. He looked toward the distant lights of Babylon. "Tomorrow we will enter that great city. Each of you will receive the wages you have earned for your faithful service. If you follow the 5 laws of money, you too may one day become wealthy and respected." He paused before finishing with one final thought. The treasures of Babylon are endless, but they belong only to those who understand the laws of money and have the determination to claim their share. Chapter 6. The Money Lender of Babylon. The 50 Pieces of Gold. Never before had Rodan the spearmaker of Babylon carried so much money. 50 pieces of gold rested in the leather pouch hanging from his belt. As he walked down the king's highway, after leaving the palace, the coins clinked together with every step. To Rodan, it was the sweetest sound he had ever heard. The king himself had rewarded him for designing a new spearhead for the royal guards. 50 pieces of gold. Rodan could hardly believe his good fortune. With that much money, he could buy almost anything he desired. A fine house, land, cattle, camels, horses, or chariots. Yet as he walked through the streets of Babylon, he struggled with one question. What should he do with it? Several days later, confused and troubled by the many requests he had received for his gold, Rodan visited Mathon, a wealthy moneylender and dealer in jewels. Rodan walked through the shop without even glancing at the colorful fabrics and precious stones on display. He went straight to the back, where Mathon relaxed on a rug while a servant served his meal. "I need your advice," Rodan said. "I don't know what to do." Mathon smiled. "That is unusual," he said. "Most people come to a moneylender asking for money, not advice." Rodan shook his head. "I do not need money. I need wisdom." Mathon laughed softly. "Then you are wiser than most men already. Sit with me, eat, and tell me your problem." Rodan explained the king's reward, and how everyone around him now wanted a share. "My sister wants me to lend the money to her husband so he can become a merchant," Rodan said. "She believes he will succeed and repay me from his profits." Mathon listened carefully. "My friend," he said, "money brings responsibility. When a man suddenly receives wealth, he also receives pressure from those who want to share in it. Then he leaned forward thoughtfully. Before deciding what to do, you must understand something important about lending money. The farmer and the donkey Mathon told Rodan a story. There was once a farmer who could understand the language of animals. One evening he listened as his ox complained to the donkey. "My life is hard," said the ox. "I pull the plow all day, no matter how hot the sun or how tired I become. But you, donkey, wear a beautiful blanket and carry the master only when he travels. The rest of the time, you relax and eat grass." The donkey felt sorry for the ox. "I will help you," he said. "Tomorrow, when the servant comes for you, lie down and pretend to be sick. Then you will have a day of rest." The ox followed the advice. When the servant saw the ox lying down, he told the farmer the ox was sick. So the farmer replied, "Then hitch the donkey to the plow." The donkey spent the entire day doing the ox's hard work. By nightfall, he was exhausted and miserable. That evening, the ox thanked him for the advice that allowed him to rest. The donkey replied bitterly, "From now on, you can pull your own plow. I heard the farmer say that if you are sick again, he will call the butcher." Mathon smiled at Rodan. "The lesson is simple," he said. "When helping a friend, be careful not to take on their burdens yourself." The token chest Mathon then brought out a large chest, covered with red leather and decorated with bronze. "This is my token chest," he said. "Whenever I lend money, I require the borrower to leave a token here until the loan is repaid. These tokens remind me of the stories behind each loan." He opened the chest and showed Rodan several items. Some represented good loans. A ring from a farmer who had borrowed money to buy goats with fine wool. The farmer succeeded and soon repaid the loan. A rope knot from a camel trader who regularly borrowed money to expand his business. He was reliable and always repaid his debts. "These are good borrowers," Mathon explained. "They understand business and use money wisely." But other tokens represented bad loans. A jewel bracelet belonging to a woman who borrowed money to help her inexperienced son become a merchant. The boy failed, and the money was never repaid. A carved beetle from a reckless young man who chased risky schemes and eventually lost everything. "You see," Mathon said, "many people believe they can make great profits if they only had money. But hope alone is not enough. Without knowledge and skill, money quickly disappears." The decision Rodan must make. Finally, Rodan asked again, "So what should I do? Should I lend my 50 pieces of gold to my sister's husband?" Mathon thought carefully before answering. "Your sister is a good woman," he said. "But if her husband came to me asking for a loan, I would ask him several questions. Does he understand the business he wants to enter? Does he know where to buy goods cheaply and where to sell them for a profit? Does he have experience as a merchant?" Rodan shook his head. "No, he does not." "Then I would refuse the loan," Mathon said. "Money must be protected. Lending it to someone without knowledge or experience is dangerous." The true value of the 50 pieces. Mathon reminded Rodan of something important. You worked 3 years to save only 3 pieces of gold. Yet the king has given you 50. That reward represents the effort of a lifetime of work. Should you risk it so someone else can experiment with business? Rodan thought quietly. Mathon then offered a wise compromise. Tell your sister this. If her husband can present a business plan that appears wise and practical to an experienced moneylender, then you will lend him a small portion of your savings to test his ability. If he succeeds, he can borrow more later. If he fails, the loss will not destroy your fortune. The final advice. Mathon closed the lid of his token chest and said, "Money is the merchant's merchandise. It must be protected and used wisely. Never lend money without a clear and safe way for it to return to you. First seek safety, then seek profit. Never be tempted by unrealistic promises of huge earnings. Such plans usually come from dreamers who do not understand business." Rodan thanked him for the advice. Before he left, Mathon pointed to words carved beneath the lid of the chest. They read, "Better a little caution than a great regret." Chapter 7. The Walls of Babylon. Old Bansir, a grim warrior from another time, stood guard at the passageway leading to the top of the ancient walls of Babylon. Above him, brave defenders fought desperately to hold the walls. Upon their success depended the survival of the great city and its hundreds of thousands of citizens. Over the walls came the terrifying sounds of battle, the roar of attacking armies, the shouting of thousands of men, the thunder of horses, and the deafening crash of battering rams pounding against the bronze gates. In the street behind the gate, spearmen waited to defend the entrance if the gates were broken. They were few in number for such a task. Babylon's main army had marched far away with the king on a great expedition against the Elamites. No attack on the city had been expected during their absence, so the defending forces left behind were small. But suddenly, from the north, the mighty armies of the Assyrians had descended. Now the walls had to hold. Otherwise, Babylon was doomed. Around Bansir gathered large crowds of frightened citizens. Pale-faced and anxious, they waited for news from the battle. Silently, they watched the stream of wounded and dead being carried down from the passageway. This gate had become the main point of attack. For 3 days, the enemy had circled the city, then suddenly concentrated their strength against this section of the wall. From above, the defenders fought fiercely. They pushed away the attackers climbing platforms and scaling ladders with arrows, burning oil, and spears. Any enemy who reached the top was met immediately with deadly force. Meanwhile, thousands of enemy archers rained arrows toward the walls. Because Bansir stood closest to the battle, he heard news of each fresh repulse of the attackers before anyone else. An elderly merchant pushed forward beside him. His hands trembled with fear. "Tell me," the old man pleaded, "they cannot break in, can they? My sons are away with the king. There is no one to protect my wife or my goods. They will steal everything, our food, our belongings. We are too old to defend ourselves. We shall starve. We shall die. Tell me they cannot enter." "Calm yourself, good merchant," Bansir replied firmly. "The walls of Babylon are strong. Go back to the bazaar and tell your wife that these walls will protect you and your possessions as safely as they protect the king's treasures. Stay close to the buildings, so the arrows flying over the walls will not strike you." As the old man left, a woman carrying a baby stepped forward. "Soldier, what news from the top?" she asked anxiously. "Tell me the truth so I may reassure my husband. He lies at home with fever from his terrible wounds, yet he insists on taking up his armor and spear to defend me. He fears what the enemy might do to me and my child if they break into the city." "Take courage, mother," Bansir answered kindly. "The walls of Babylon will protect you and your child. They are high and strong. Do you not hear the cheers of our defenders as they pour burning oil upon the attackers climbing the ladders?" "Yes," she replied, "but I also hear the battering rams striking the gates." "The gates are strong, and will hold," Bansir assured her. "Those who climb the wall are met by waiting spears. Go back to your husband and tell him the city stands firm." Just then Bansir stepped aside, as heavily armed reinforcements marched up the passageway with clanking shields and steady steps. A small girl tugged at his belt. "Tell me, soldier, are we safe?" she asked. "I hear the terrible noises. I see the wounded men covered in blood. I am frightened. What will happen to my mother, my little brother, and the baby?" The old warrior blinked and softened as he looked at the child. "Do not be afraid, little one," he said gently. "The walls of Babylon will protect you, your mother, your little brother, and the baby. They were built over 100 years ago by the good Queen Semiramis to keep our people safe. Never have they been broken. Go home and tell your family the walls will protect them. They need not fear." Day after day, Bansir stood at his post, watching reinforcements climb the passageway to the wall. Many of them returned later wounded, or not at all. Around him, frightened citizens continued to gather, asking the same question. Would the walls hold? To each one, he gave the same answer, with the dignity of an old soldier. "The walls of Babylon will protect you." For 3 weeks and 5 days, the attack continued without pause. The ground behind the passageway grew muddy with the blood of the wounded as soldiers marched up to fight and staggered back down again. Outside the walls, the bodies of fallen attackers piled high. Each night, their comrades carried them away for burial. Then, on the 5th night of the 4th week, the noise outside suddenly grew quieter. At dawn, the defenders saw huge clouds of dust rising from the plains. The Assyrian army was retreating. A mighty shout of victory erupted from the walls. The soldiers behind the gates took up the cry. The citizens in the streets repeated it. Joy spread through the city like a storm. People poured from their homes and crowded the streets in celebration. Weeks of fear burst into wild happiness. From the tall tower of the Temple of Bel, flames of victory shot into the sky. A column of blue smoke rose high above the city to carry the message far and wide. Babylon had once again defeated a powerful enemy, determined to plunder its riches and enslave its people. Babylon survived century after century because it was fully protected. It could not afford to be otherwise. The walls of Babylon were a powerful symbol of humanity's desire for protection, a desire that exists just as strongly today as it did then. Today, we build our own walls through insurance, savings, and reliable investments. Behind these protections, we guard ourselves against the unexpected tragedies that may enter any home. Just as Babylon could not survive without its walls, we cannot afford to live without adequate protection. Chapter 8. The Camel Trader of Babylon. The hungrier a man becomes, the clearer his mind often works. At least that is what Tarkad, the son of Azur, believed. For 2 days he had eaten nothing except 2 small figs he had stolen from a garden by reaching over the wall. He could not grab another before the angry woman who owned the garden rushed out and chased him down the street, her shrill cries still ringing in his ears. Now, as Tarkad walked through the marketplace, the smell of food filled the air. Never before had he noticed how much food was brought to the markets of Babylon, or how wonderful it smelled. The aroma made his stomach ache. His fingers twitched with temptation as he passed baskets of fruit, but the memory of the woman's shouting kept him from stealing again. Leaving the market, he wandered toward an inn and paced slowly in front of the eating house. Perhaps he might meet someone he knew, someone willing to lend him a copper coin. With even a single copper, he might earn a small meal from the unfriendly innkeeper. Without money, he knew he would not be welcome. Lost in thought, Tarkad suddenly found himself face to face with the one man he most wished to avoid. It was Dabasir, the camel trader. Of all the people Tarkad owed money to, Dabasir made him the most uncomfortable. Tarkad had borrowed small sums from many people and had promised to repay them, but he had failed. Dabasir's face brightened when he saw him. "Ah, the very man I have been seeking," he said. "You can repay the 2 copper coins I lent you last month, and the silver piece from before that. I could make good use of them today." Tarkad's face flushed. "I am sorry. Very sorry," he stammered weakly. "But today, I have neither copper nor silver to repay you." "Then get it," Dabasir said bluntly. "Surely you can find a few coins to repay the generosity of an old friend of your father?" "I cannot," Tarkad said miserably. "Ill fortune pursues me." "Ill fortune?" Dabasir snorted. "Do not blame the gods for your own weakness. Ill fortune pursues the man who thinks more about borrowing than repaying." Then Dabasir said something unexpected. "Come with me while I eat. I am hungry, and I will tell you a tale." Though embarrassed by Dabasir's harsh words, Tarkad followed him gratefully into the eating house. They sat in a far corner, on small rugs. When the innkeeper approached, Dabasir ordered loudly, "Bring me a leg of goat, well roasted and juicy, with bread and vegetables. I am very hungry, and bring my friend here a jug of cool water. The day is hot." Tarkad's heart sank. Must he sit and drink water while Dabasir ate a feast? Yet he said nothing. Soon the steaming leg of goat arrived, and Dabasir began eating with enthusiasm. Other diners nearby recognized him and moved closer to listen. "Dabasir will tell a story," one whispered. Soon a small crowd gathered around. Tarkad alone sat without food while the others ate. Dabasir began speaking. "Dabasir's story. When I was young," Dabasir said between bites, "I learned the trade of my father, making saddles. I worked in his shop and married a good woman. I was not highly skilled and earned only enough to support us modestly. Yet I wanted fine things I could not afford. Soon I discovered the shopkeepers would trust me to pay later." The listeners nodded. Such arrangements were common. "But I did not understand the danger," Dabasir continued. "He who spends more than he earns is planting the seeds of trouble and humiliation." So he bought fine clothes and luxuries for his wife and home. For a time, everything seemed well. But eventually his earnings were not enough to both live on and repay his debts. Creditors began chasing him. His life became miserable. "I borrowed from friends, but could not repay them either," he admitted. Finally his wife returned to her father, and Dabasir fled Babylon, hoping to start again elsewhere. But things only grew worse. He joined a band of robbers who attacked caravans in the desert. "It was shameful work," he said. "But at the time, I did not realize how far I had fallen." On their second raid, they were captured by soldiers and taken to Damascus. There they were stripped and sold as slaves. Dabasir himself was purchased by a Syrian desert chief for 2 pieces of silver. When he was taken before the chief's 4 wives, he learned they intended to make him a eunuch. Only then did he fully realize his desperate situation. The wives examined him while he stood helpless. Finally, the first wife, Sirah, spoke. "We have enough eunuchs," she said, "but we need someone to care for the camels." Dabasir explained that he knew how to handle camels well, so he became her camel tender instead. A question that changed his life. One day, while traveling with Sirah, Dabasir thanked her for saving him from becoming a eunuch. He told her he was not born a slave, but the son of an honorable saddle-maker from Babylon. Her answer surprised him. "How can you call yourself a free man?" she asked, "when your own weakness has brought you here?" Her words struck deeply. "If a man has the soul of a slave," she continued, "he will become one regardless of his birth. But if a man has the soul of a free man, he will gain honor even in the face of misfortune." The words haunted him. For more than a year he lived among the slaves, yet he felt different from them. One evening, Sirah asked him, "Why do you sit alone while the other slaves laugh together?" "I am thinking about your words," he answered. "I wonder whether I have the soul of a slave." She then asked him another question. "Do you desire to repay the debts you owe in Babylon?" "Yes," he said, "but I see no way." "If you truly desired it," she replied, "you would find a way. No man can respect himself who doesn't repay honest debts." Her words burned in his mind. The chance to escape. Soon afterward, Sirah gave him a chance. One night she secretly gave him 2 camels, supplies, and clothing for disguise. "Escape," she told him. "I will say you stole them." He thanked her and rode into the desert under cover of darkness. For 9 days he struggled across a brutal landscape. Finally, exhausted and starving, he collapsed. As he lay there, he asked himself a question. "Do I have the soul of a slave, or the soul of a free man?" If he had the soul of a slave, he would lie there and die. But if he had the soul of a free man, he would return to Babylon and face his debts. At that moment, something changed inside him. "It was as if a colored stone had been removed from my eyes," he said. He suddenly saw life clearly. His debts were not curses. They were enemies he must defeat. The men he owed were not enemies. They were friends who had trusted him. With new determination, he rose. "I will return to Babylon," he vowed, "repay every debt, rebuild my home, and become a man my parents can respect." Returning to Babylon, back in Babylon, he visited every man he owed and asked for patience while he worked to repay them. Most were understanding. One man helped him especially, Mathon, the moneylender. Learning that Dabasir understood camels, Mathon recommended him to a camel trader who needed help buying animals for the king's expedition. Dabasir worked hard. Little by little he repaid every debt, every copper, and every piece of silver. "And when the last coin was repaid," he concluded proudly, "I could hold my head high again as an honorable man." The lesson Dabasir turned back to his meal and called loudly to the innkeeper, "Bring more meat, and bring a large portion for Tarkad, the son of my old friend. He is hungry and will eat with me." Tarkad's eyes filled with gratitude. Dabasir's story ended with a simple truth. Where determination exists, a way can always be found. Those who face their problems with courage rise above them. Those who run from them become slaves to their circumstances. And so the lesson of Dabasir the camel trader lived on. A truth known by wise men long before his time, and still powerful today. When a man truly decides to change his life, he will always find a way. Chapter 9. The Clay Tablets from Babylon. St. Swithin's College. Nottingham University. Newark-on-Trent, Nottingham. October 21, 1934. Professor Franklin Caldwell. British Scientific Expedition, Hilla, Mesopotamia. My dear Professor, the 5 clay tablets from your recent excavation in the ruins of Babylon arrived safely on the same ship as your letter. I have been completely fascinated by them and have spent many pleasant hours translating their inscriptions. I delayed replying until I could complete the translations, which I have attached. Thanks to your careful packing and use of preservatives, the tablets arrived without damage. You will likely be as surprised as we were in the laboratory by the story they tell. When we think of the distant past, we expect tales of romance and adventure, something like the Arabian Nights. Yet instead, we find the story of a man named Dabasir, struggling to repay his debts. It makes one realize that in 5,000 years, human problems have not changed as much as we might imagine. To be honest, these old inscriptions rather challenge me. As a college professor, I am supposed to be a thoughtful man with knowledge of many subjects. Yet here comes a fellow from the dust-covered ruins of Babylon offering a method for paying off debts. One I had never heard before. Not only that, but he claims it can also help a man accumulate money to jingle in his purse. It is a pleasant thought and an interesting experiment to see whether such a plan might work today as well as it did in ancient Babylon. Mrs. Shrewsbury and I have decided to test his system with our own finances, which certainly could use improvement. Wishing you the best of luck in your work and hoping for another opportunity to assist. Yours sincerely, Alfred H. Shrewsbury, Department of Archaeology. Tablet 1. When the moon is full, I, Dabasir, who have recently returned from slavery in Syria, make this record upon clay. My purpose is to guide myself in paying my many debts and becoming a man worthy of respect in my native city of Babylon. Under the advice of my good friend Mathon, the moneylender, I will follow an exact plan that he says can lead any honorable man out of debt and toward prosperity. This plan has 3 purposes. First, provide for my future prosperity. 1/10 of everything I earn shall be set aside as my own to keep. Mathon says wisely, a man who keeps money in his purse that he does not spend becomes good to his family and loyal to his king. A man with only a few coins in his purse becomes indifferent to both. But a man with nothing in his purse becomes bitter toward life. Therefore, a man who wishes to succeed must always keep money that he may call his own. Second, provide for my household. 7/10 of my earnings shall be used to support my faithful wife, who has returned to me from her father's house. Mathon says that caring well for a good wife places self-respect in a man's heart and strengthens his determination. Therefore, this portion shall pay for our home, clothing, food, and a few pleasures, so our lives are not entirely without enjoyment. However, we must be careful never to spend more than this 7/10. This is essential to the success of the plan. Tablet 2. Third, repay my debts. 2/10 of everything I earn shall be used to repay those who trusted me. Each month this portion will be divided fairly among all my creditors. Thus, in time, my debts will be paid. I therefore record here the names of all those to whom I owe money. Faru, the cloth weaver. Sinjar, the couchmaker. Arman, my friend Zankar, my friend Askamir, my friend Haran Seer, the jeweler. The farmer Birajik Al-Kahad, the house owner Mathon, the moneylender. Parts of the tablet beyond this point were damaged and cannot be deciphered. Tablet 3. Altogether, I owe 119 pieces of silver and 141 pieces of copper. Because I saw no way to repay these debts, I foolishly allowed my wife to return to her father and left Babylon seeking easier wealth. Instead, I found disaster and slavery. Now that Mathon has shown me how to repay my debts gradually, I realize the great mistake I made by running away. I have visited all my creditors and explained that I have no resources except my ability to earn. I promised to give them 2/10 of my income each month until the debts are paid. Some criticized me. One friend spoke harshly. The house owner threatened trouble. But most agreed to my plan. This strengthens my determination to succeed, for I see that it is easier to repay debts than to avoid them. Tablet 4. Again, the moon is full. During the past month, I earned 19 pieces of silver buying camels for a trader. According to the plan, 1/10 I saved. 7/10 my wife and I used for living. 2/10 I paid to my creditors. My debt is already reduced, and I now possess money in my purse that belongs to me alone. My heart feels lighter than it has for many years. In another month, I earned less, yet we still followed the plan faithfully. Even when food was simple and clothing worn, we did not break the system. Later, a good month came when I earned 42 pieces of silver. We paid our creditors generously. Even the harshest among them began to respect my efforts. Tablet 5, now 12. Full moons have passed. Today I record something important. I have paid the last of my debts. My wife and I celebrate this day with a great feast. Some of my creditors now speak kindly of me. One said that once I had been like soft clay that anyone could shape. Now I am like bronze, strong and dependable. Many people now treat me with respect. My wife looks at me with pride. But it was not I alone who created this success. It was the plan. It allowed me to repay every debt and still have money in my purse. If such a plan could lift a former slave to independence, surely it can help any man. And I am not finished yet. For if I continue to follow it, I believe it will make me wealthy among men. A second letter, 2 years later, November 7th, 1936. Professor Caldwell. You may remember that my wife and I decided to try the financial plan described on those clay tablets. At the time, we were buried in debt and deeply worried. Despite paying what we could, our situation never improved. It was a vicious circle. Then came Dabassir's plan. We listed every debt and showed the list to our creditors. I explained that we could never repay them under the current circumstances. Instead, I proposed to pay 20% of my income every month until the debts were cleared. They agreed. Meanwhile, we lived on 70% of our income and saved 10%. At first, the saved money simply jingled in our pockets. But eventually, we invested it. Now our debts are nearly gone, and our investments are steadily growing. All this happened using the same income we had before. The only difference was having a clear financial plan instead of drifting aimlessly. We will never again allow our expenses to exceed 70% of our income. Now you understand why we feel grateful to that ancient camel trader whose message survived 5,000 years in clay. His lesson remains as true today as it was when he first carved it. Yours sincerely, Alfred H. Shrewsbury. The core lesson from the tablets Dabassir's simple system. Save 10% of everything you earn. Live on no more than 70%. Use 20% to repay debts until they are gone. A simple plan, but powerful enough to transform a man's life. Chapter 10. The Luckiest Man in Babylon. The man who found the key to success. At the head of his caravan rode Sharu Nada, the merchant prince of Babylon. He loved fine things and wore rich, elegant robes. He also enjoyed fine horses and sat comfortably on his spirited Arabian stallion. Looking at him, few would guess his age. Even fewer would realize that he carried a quiet concern in his heart. The journey from Damascus was long and difficult, but the desert hardships did not trouble him. The fierce Arab tribes who sometimes attacked caravans did not worry him either. His caravan was well protected by fast-mounted guards. What troubled him was the young man riding beside him. The youth was Hadan Gula, grandson of his old partner Arad Gula. Sharunada felt a deep debt of gratitude toward Arad Gula, a debt he could never repay. Because of that, he wanted to help the grandson. Yet the more he thought about it, the more difficult it seemed. Looking at the young man's rings and earrings, Sharunada thought to himself, "He thinks jewels are meant for men." His grandfather never wore such things. Still, the youth had his grandfather's strong face. Sharunada had invited him to join this journey, hoping he could help him rebuild the fortune his father had squandered. The young man's view of life. Hadan Gula broke into his thoughts. "Why do you work so hard?" he asked. "You travel constantly with your caravans and never take time to enjoy life." Sharunada smiled. "Enjoy life?" he repeated. "What would you do if you had wealth like mine?" "I would live like a prince," the young man replied eagerly. "I would never cross a hot desert again. I would spend silver as fast as it entered my purse. I would wear the finest clothes and rare jewels. That would be a life worth living." Both men laughed. "Your grandfather wore no jewels," Sharunada said thoughtfully. "Work is for slaves," Hadan Gula replied. Sharunada bit his lip, but said nothing. A view of Babylon soon, the trail climbed a hill. Sharunada stopped and pointed toward the distance. "Look there," he said. Far away lay a green valley. In the distance stood the walls of Babylon, and above them rose the tall tower of the Temple of Bel. A faint column of smoke rose from its eternal fire. "So that is Babylon," the youth said in awe. "The richest city in the world. My grandfather began his fortune there. If only he were still alive. My father and I never discovered his secret for attracting money." Sharunada said nothing but rode thoughtfully down the hill. Behind them the caravan followed in a cloud of red dust. Memories of the past. Later they passed farmland along the King's Highway. 3 old men were plowing a field. Something about them seemed familiar to Sharunada. It seemed impossible. But he felt they might be the same men he had seen plowing there 40 years earlier. Long ago, he had envied men like them. Now he looked back proudly at his caravan, camels and donkeys carrying valuable goods. What a difference 40 years had made. A story begins. Turning to the youth, Sharunada said, "Would you like to hear how your grandfather and I became partners?" "Just tell me how you both made money," Hadan Gula replied. Ignoring the remark, Sharunada began his story. "When he was a slave, I was about your age when I first approached Babylon," he said. "I was not riding proudly as I am today. I was walking in a chain of slaves. Bronze collars were locked around their necks, connected by heavy chains. Beside him walked Megiddo, a farmer. Another man was Zabado, a sheep thief. At the end of the chain was a sailor they called Pirate, recognized by 2 tattooed serpents on his chest. They were being taken to Babylon to be sold as slaves. Megiddo's wisdom. As they passed a field where farmers were plowing poorly, Megiddo complained. "They are lazy," he said. "They will never grow good crops working like that." "Why work hard?" Zabado laughed. Smart men avoid work. Megiddo disagreed. Work is my best friend, he said. It gave me my farm, my cattle, and my crops. But you lost them, Zabato mocked. Megiddo simply replied, Even so, work will help me again. That night, Sharu-Nada asked a guard whether they would be sent to build the city walls. The guard said it was possible. Megiddo advised him, If you get a master, work hard for him. Work well done makes a man stronger and better. The slave market. The next day they were taken to the slave market. Buyers came to examine them. Megiddo quickly convinced a farmer that he would be a good worker and was purchased. Before leaving, he gave Sharu-Nada one final piece of advice. Make work your friend. A new opportunity. Later, a baker came looking for help. Sharu-Nada stepped forward and said, I am young, strong, and eager to work. Give me a chance, and I will earn silver for you. The baker bought him. Sharu-Nada worked hard learning to grind grain, bake bread, and prepare honey cakes. Soon he had an idea. He asked his master for permission to sell extra honey cakes in the streets. They made an agreement. Half the money would pay for ingredients. The remaining half would be split between them. For the first time, Sharu-Nada earned coins of his own. Meeting Arad Gula. One of his regular customers was a rug merchant named Arad Gula. He always bought cakes for himself and his servant. One day he told Sharu-Nada, I admire your spirit. That kind of determination leads to success. Encouraged, Sharu-Nada saved every coin he could. Work had truly become his friend. Trouble returns. Unfortunately, his master later lost money gambling. A moneylender claimed Sharu-Nada as payment for the debt and sold him to a contractor building a great canal. The work was brutal. Men carried heavy baskets of dirt all day under the burning sun. Many collapsed from exhaustion. Sharu-Nada began to lose hope. Then he remembered Megiddo's words. Work is your best friend. An unexpected rescue. One day, a messenger arrived. Arad Gula had searched everywhere for him. He bought Sharu-Nada's freedom and greeted him warmly. Then he broke the clay tablet that proved Sharu-Nada was a slave. You are free, he said. Come with me to Damascus. I want you as my partner. The lesson Sharu-Nada finished his story and turned to Hadan Gula. Your grandfather's success came from one thing, he said. Work. Hadan Gula thought quietly. I understand now, he said slowly. Work brought him friends, success, and honor. I believed work was only for slaves. Life has many pleasures, Sharu-Nada replied, but none equals the satisfaction of work. A change of heart. As they entered the great gates of Babylon, Hadan Gula spoke again. I always wanted to be like my grandfather, he said. Now I understand the kind of man he truly was. Then he removed his jeweled earrings and rings. These do not suit me anymore. He moved his horse behind Sharu-Nada and rode respectfully with the caravan leader, for he had finally learned the true secret of success. Work willingly, and it will lead you to opportunity, respect, and wealth. Chapter 11. An historical sketch of Babylon. Babylon, the city of human ingenuity. No city in history has ever captured the imagination like Babylon. Its name alone evokes images of wealth, splendor, and treasures of gold and jewels. Yet the reality was far different from the tropical, resource-rich paradise one might imagine. Babylon was built beside the Euphrates River, in a flat, arid valley. There were no forests, no mines, not even natural stone for construction. Rainfall was scarce, and it was not located along a natural trade route. Yet Babylon thrived. It stands as one of the greatest examples of humanity, achieving grand objectives with limited natural resources. The city's wealth was almost entirely man-made. Its two natural resources, fertile soil and river water, were ingeniously harnessed. Babylonian engineers diverted the Euphrates using dams and massive irrigation canals, carrying water across the dry valley to transform it into fertile farmland. This early engineering feat was unmatched in its time. Thanks to this irrigation system, Babylon produced crops that amazed the ancient world. Its rulers, though engaged in wars, were remembered not for conquest but for wisdom, enterprise, and justice. Babylon had no egotistical monarchs seeking to dominate the known world. Its glory came from the skill and ingenuity of its people. Geography and excavation Babylon no longer exists as a living city. Its ruins lie about 600 miles east of the Suez Canal, north of the Persian Gulf, at roughly 30 degrees latitude, similar to Yuma, Arizona, with its hot, dry climate. Once a fertile region irrigated by the Euphrates, the valley is now windswept and arid, with only desert shrubs and nomadic herders. For centuries, travelers mistook earthen mounds for natural hills. Archaeologists, however, were drawn to them by shards of pottery and brick washed down by rain. Excavations revealed that these were the remains of Babylon and other ancient cities, some dating back 8,000 years. The ages of these cities were confirmed through astronomical records. Babylonians had recorded solar eclipses on clay tablets, allowing modern astronomers to link their calendar to ours. These people were far from primitive. They were the first engineers, astronomers, mathematicians, financiers, and writers. Engineering marvels irrigation transformed the arid valley into a productive agricultural region. Some canals were so wide that a dozen horses could ride abreast along their bottoms. Extensive drainage systems reclaimed swamplands at the mouths of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. The Babylonians were also skilled builders. Queen Semiramis is credited with the first city walls. Later, about 600 years before Christ, King Nabopolassar began rebuilding Babylon on a massive scale. His son, Nebuchadnezzar, completed the work. The later walls were said to reach 160 feet high, the height of a modern 15-story building, and encircle the city for 9 to 11 miles, wide enough for a 6-horse chariot to pass on top. These walls, along with their deep moats, made Babylon virtually impregnable. Daily life and culture Babylon was organized much like a modern city: streets, shops, markets, and residential districts. Temples were magnificent, palaces were protected by inner walls, and priests played a central role in city life. The Babylonians excelled in the arts: sculpture, painting, weaving, metalworking, and jewelry making. Many examples survive in museums today. They were also early inventors of money, property titles, and promissory notes. Their society had literacy, record-keeping, and sophisticated commerce long before much of the world. Clay tablets preserved their records: legal documents, letters, business accounts, and literature. Entire libraries of these tablets survive, giving insight into their daily life and governance. Military history and decline. Babylon's walls repelled almost every conqueror. Armies of tens of thousands of soldiers, thousands of chariots, and massive foot regiments failed to take the city. The fall of Babylon was unusual. Around 540 BCE, Cyrus the Great intended to conquer the city. The Babylonian king, Nabonidus, was persuaded to meet him in battle, rather than rely on the city's walls. After the army was defeated in the field, Cyrus entered the city through the open gates, without a siege. Following this, Babylon gradually lost its prestige. Over centuries, it was abandoned and reclaimed by the desert. Once a center of human ingenuity and splendor, it became little more than a mound of earth. Legacy. The glory of Babylon may have faded, but its wisdom, engineering, and records endure. From irrigation systems to astronomy, mathematics, and commerce, the people of Babylon laid foundations for civilization. Their achievements continue to inspire, reminding us what human skill and determination can accomplish, even in the harshest conditions.
Which lesson from Babylon stood out to you the most, and how will you apply it in your own life? If you're serious about building wealth, like the video, subscribe for more audiobooks and wealth teachings. Share this with someone who needs these lessons. Your journey starts with one good idea. Let's make it count.